gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the chairman for yielding. I'd like to thank my good friend from Kentucky, the sponsor of this legislation, for leading on this important issue. Mr. Speaker, for many Western Pennsylvanians, home ownership is a significant aspect of realizing the American dream. Moving from paying rent to owning a home is an investment in the future for these families and an investment in their local communities. Unfortunately, today that dream is being threatened unnecessarily by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's Qualified Mortgage Rule, or QM. The QM rule is a Washington knows best approach to mortgages that is hampering access to home loans across this country and hurting potential home buyers and their communities. As with many complicated and one-size-fits-all regulations, the QM rule has brought substantial unintended consequences. The rule's strict arbitrary standards have made it more difficult for many deserving consumers to get a mortgage, and as a result, it has stalled much-needed investment in distressed and recovering communities. Notably, a significant amount of low to moderate income borrowers now do not qualify for a mortgage based on the rule's 43% debt-to-income ratio requirement. In fact, according to the Federal Reserve, 22% of those who borrowed to buy a home in 2010, after the financial crisis, 1 out of every 5 borrowers would not have met this requirement. Mr. Speaker, these are the hard-working, everyday people we are talking about. These are the people we are fighting for today. It is our local community banks and credit unions that have long-standing relationships with these everyday people, and they are in the best position to judge creditworthiness and ability to repay. But the QM rule effectively takes that opportunity away from these community institutions and subjects them to an increased potential liability that should they ever decide to stray outside the regulation. This is why, as the American Banker and others have put it well, for community financial institutions, QM means quitting mortgages. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, this common sense legislation that we are considering today offers a real opportunity to change this. In short, the bill provides a very reasonable trade-off for financial institutions. Should an institution decide to hold a mortgage in portfolio and retain the risk of default on its balance sheet, the institution receives the legal protections that are otherwise afforded by the QM rule. On the other hand, if that institution decides not to hold the mortgage in portfolio, sells it in the secondary market, and does not retain the risk, the institution does not receive those legal protections. By providing this option, the legislation will allow institutions to meet the credit demands of their consumers while incentivizing them to ensure that potential borrowers can meet the monthly obligations of a mortgage. In other words, it properly realigns the risk, facilitates effective underwriting by lenders, and ensures that mortgages will be readily available for deserving home buyers. Mr. Speaker, let's pass this legislation so we can help transform through home ownership. I urge my colleagues to support the bill, and I yield back.